I truly, truly believe that real estate is the best and safest path to building generational wealth. In this episode, I'm going to tell you how I personally invested in my first real estate property and how you can do the same no matter what situation you may find yourself in. You're going to be building your generational wealth versus your landlord's generational wealth. I am going to share with you all this sneaky real estate strategy that will change your life. And that is something called purchasing my home, where I'm like, I wish I paid attention to this. I wish I included this. I wish I didn't include that. I know that hurts. I know that sucks to hear, but it's good to go in with that mindset, with that expectation, so that if it happens, you don't feel like you screwed up. You don't feel like you made the wrong decision. I'm going to share with you all the money, the amount of money that I am currently making in my house hack, in my investment property. And the answer is hey Harmonizers, my name is Laura Maluhi and welcome back to another episode of In Harmony, giving you lights and encouragement to pursue the incredible life that God has for you. So as you all know, this episode is going to be a continuation from part 1 about why you should invest in real estate versus some other investment strategies. And if I look the exact same, just ignore it. I may or may not be recording this episode on the same day. I don't know. But in this episode, I guess to preface it, I know this podcast is about how to live the incredible life that God has for you, the purpose that He has for you. And although you may be thinking, what does that have to do with real estate? I want to remind you that God wants you to have an abundant and prosperous life, and He wants you to have a healthy financial situation as well. And as I said in the first part of this series, is that I truly, truly believe that real estate is the best and safest path to building generational wealth if done correctly. So the intention on both of these episodes is how to build wealth, how to build generational wealth, and how to build a legacy so that you can give and share all of the abundance that God has blessed you with to bless and enhance the life of others. That's really my intention with doing both of these 2 episodes. And I'm very excited about this episode because the first part of the series was just to kind of show you why so many people in America, around the world, invest in real estate primarily versus some of the other investment options out there. And in this episode, I'm going to tell you how I personally invested in my first real estate property and how you can do the same no matter what situation you may find yourself in. So without further ado, let's get started. So first, I am going to share with you all this sneaky real estate strategy that will change your life. And that is something called house hacking. This investment strategy is also known as the owner-occupied rental. Let's say you own a home and your friend Dan is like, hey, I'm looking to live on this side of town. Do you have any options? And if you were to tell Dan, yes, actually, I have an extra room in my home, and if you pay me this much amount in rent, you can live there and we can write up a lease. We can do it the whole way. And Dan eventually lives in your property. But the cool thing is that Dan is helping to pay for your mortgage payment. This is the concept behind the owner-occupied rental. Now, I know a lot of you guys are like, bro, I don't want my friend Dan moving in with me. Dan is dirty. Dan is crusty. I do not want that man living with me. I don't know if I want to have somebody living with me in my home to help pay for my mortgage. Let me show you a way that you can easily do this and practically do this so that you can kick off your generational wealth building. So first is, what are some of the benefits of house hacking? The first benefit is that it works in mostly any kind of market condition. That is the reason that I chose to do this house hacking as my first real estate investment strategy, is because especially the time when I was looking to buy my first home, the market was up, the market was down, interest rates were going up, there was uncertainty, COVID was settling, but there was some supply chain issues, there was a lot going on. So I wanted a safe investment, One, because it was my first investment property. I had saved up for so long to purchase this that I really didn't want to invest in anything that was too risky. And also because the market wasn't looking too hot. So I truly believed that house hacking was the perfect first investment for me to make. So that's one of the benefits of house hacking. The next benefit is that even though you house hack, you have different options. You don't have to do a long-term tenant like your friend Dan. You can do something called a short-term rental, which is what a lot of people refer to as Airbnbs, VRBOs, or you can do a medium-term rental. A medium-term rental is essentially anything that is under 6 months or over a 30-day stay. So short-term rental is typically 30 days and under. Medium-term rental is typically anywhere from 1 to 6 months. So a medium-term rental, this attracts a lot of your travel nurses, your medical professionals. I believe they're called work from home nomads, where they kind of work from home and they travel from place to place. They're a contractor and they only need to live in a city for a certain amount of time, a couple of months. So they need a home and a place that is nice, furnished, and close to the area where they will be, they will need to work. So short-term rental is an option. Medium-term rental is also an option. And lastly, of course, a long-term rental is also an option. A long-term rental is typically anything a year or more. So if you have a tenant who's going to be looking for a place to stay for at least a year, the long-term rental strategy may be the best option. So the second benefit of house hacking is that you can decide whether you want to do a short-term rental, a medium-term rental, or a long-term rental, or even a combination of all three. The third benefit of house hacking is that typically with investment properties, especially right now, the minimum that lenders, at least for conventional financing, require that you put down is at a minimum 20%, but right now it's probably closer to 25% that lenders are requiring because they see investment as a little bit more risky than if this home is your primary residence. But the nice thing about house hacking is this home is your primary residence. So let's say you can only afford putting 5 or 10% down. I believe the average down payment is about 12%. So let's say you can only afford 10 or 12 to put down. You can still invest in real estate. You can still buy a piece of property and it counts as your primary residence, but you can also rent it out to a friend, to a loved one, to a tenant so that they can help pay for your mortgage, build you equity in your home, and sometimes you can even make additional cash flow from having that tenant in your property. So the third benefit of house hacking is because it's considered a primary residence, you don't have to put down as large of a down payment as you would if you were purchasing a pure investment property. So those are my 3 benefits of house hacking and why I decided to make my first real estate investment a house hack property. I know that this concept, the owner-occupied rental, house hacking, does not sound ideal to most of us, especially if you're looking to grow a family or even if you're a young adult and you just like your own personal space. Something that I did for my home is I purchased a custom home and I customized the home in a way so that there was privacy between the unit that was going to be rented out and the unit where I was going to live. And it's not always that easy, but something I would recommend for you to do is if you can find a duplex, that would be awesome because the duplex essentially has 2 units. You can live in one autonomously. You have your own kitchen, you have your own bathroom, you have your own entrance, and then your tenant has their own separate unit. But a lot of us, that may not be the easiest thing to do, the easiest thing to find, depending on the market that you're living in. I would encourage you to really look out there for if you find a property that has a casita, that has a guest suite, that has a mother-in-law quarters. A lot of these homes, it's called multi-generational housing, multi-generational floor plans, have become very, very popular, especially with new construction, because we're seeing that as it becomes more and more unaffordable for the average American to purchase a home to live in, a lot of builders and a lot of developers are making their homes, making their floor plans with the flexibility and the option to have essentially 2 units. If your mother-in-law needs to live with you, if a young adult needs to live with you, you can all have a certain level of privacy under the same roof. So if you're not having any luck with duplexes, it may be a good idea to start at least looking into and exploring the option of new construction, specifically new construction that has this multi-generational floor plan, these multi-generational features like having a kitchenette, having a second entrance, having a single car garage specifically for the mother-in-law. My home was a new construction. I can tell you it is going to typically be more expensive. But let's say the average rent in your area is $1,000. The average rent for a 1-bedroom, 1-bathroom home, okay? And let's say that you purchase a home that you intend to house hack and your mortgage payment is $1,200. And you're like, Lauren, I found a tenant. I'm charging them $1,000, but I still have to pay out of my pocket $200. Like, that sucks. I thought that the tenant was supposed to pay for my full mortgage. You have to see it this way. If you were to live anywhere else, in an apartment, in a townhome, wherever else you may need to live to rent because you don't own a piece of real estate, you would have to be paying $1,000. So your $200 payment is much, much, much less than if you were paying $1,000 anywhere else. So although your tenant isn't paying for your complete mortgage, you're still saving $800 versus if you were living anywhere else. And guess what? That tenant is paying for your equity. You're putting that to your $200 into building equity in your home versus building equity in a landlord's property, in a landlord's generational wealth. So you have to have that mindset. It may not be easy finding the perfect property to do this. It may take some creativity, but I promise you, if you do it correctly, it is going to be so worth it. You're going to be building your generational wealth versus your landlord's generational wealth. You're going to be saving money in paying for your rent versus spending the market, what's the market average for rent costs in your area. So you have to have that mindset. And although it may be an inconvenience finding the right property to do this, paying a little bit more for new construction, you are building generational wealth. And with that is going to come a trade-off. Maybe you're going to have to rent it to your brother. Maybe you're going to have to rent it to your sister. Ideally, you would like to have your own place. But if you think about it, if you're working for most of the day, if you're going out most of the time, you really don't spend a lot of time at home. And even if you just house hack for try 6 months, try a year and see how it goes. And if you put in the work to properly vet your tenants, which that's a whole video, I won't get into that, but I can if you all were interested, it may be a very, very lucrative real estate investment strategy for you. So just some food for thought. Next, in the second part of this video, I'm going to get a little bit more into the details about my first investment property, how much or how little money I am making, and any of the benefits that I'm seeing from actually taking my hard-earned money and putting it into this real estate property. In 2022 is when I purchased my first property. I did choose to furnish my home. That is another expense. If you can barely afford to buy the home, it may not be a good idea to furnish it because, at least for me, for the furniture was an expense. I purchased a home in an area, as I said in the other real estate video I did about building generational wealth. I highly recommend location does matter. It's not just a stigma. It's not just something that realtors put on their bumper stickers. Location is very important. So even though I knew I was paying a lot of money for my home, I knew that I wanted to be in a good area because to me, appreciation was more important than cash flow. So as we said in the last video, appreciation is basically the value that your home has every year. So maybe you purchased a home in 2020 that was worth $100,000. A lot of times, like let's say in 2022, it might go up $110,000 in the market value. So essentially your appreciation was about $10,000. That's the power of appreciation. And in order to have good appreciation, I knew that I needed to be in a good location, in a good market. I wanted to be on a side of town that I saw was growing, that I saw a lot of construction going on, that I saw a lot of people wanting to live in, people coming from out of town wanted to live in this particular area. There was parks. It had really close access to two highways. It was close to a hospital. It was close to retail, shopping. I knew that because I'm a young adult, my real estate strategy is not to make money in the first 2 to 3 years, but to make money in the long run. And I may not make all that money early on, but that's okay. I was willing to forego that because I'm getting started in real estate at a young age. So especially if you're also a young adult, I really would recommend to focus on appreciation over cash flow because you're getting started in the game early on. Versus if you were investing in real estate in your 60s and you're looking for real estate to build your retirement, you may need that cash flow right away because you jumped into the game at a later age. So all that to say, if you're a young adult, I really recommend focusing on a really, really good location and not obsessing so much about the immediate money, the immediate cash flow that you're going to make from your property, but having a long-term perspective. And something to keep in mind is that there is no perfect market. No perfect market offers both great cash flow today and high probability of great appreciation. Typically, as you'll see, there's a trade-off. Markets that do have great cash flow don't always have the best appreciation, and markets that do have really good appreciation don't always have the best cash flow because they're typically more expensive to get into. Typically, the homes there are more expensive. So just something to keep in mind is that it's usually a trade-off. Also, something I wish somebody told me, and again, this video might not get a lot of views because I do not have any get rich quick schemes for you. I don't have any buy this real estate course and you're going to make money overnight. Absolutely not. Actually, it is the opposite. I'm here to tell you that if you want to build wealth through real estate, it's going to take time, but it's going to be so worth it. And a part of that is real estate is not a passive investment. It can be. I know some people who do syndications or maybe they invest in REITs, real estate investment trusts, those can be a little bit more passive, but as you can imagine, the return might not always be the best. But in real estate, a lot of people think, oh, I need a passive investment strategy. Listen, my friend, especially if you're looking to do a short-term rental, which as we said, is kind of like getting into Airbnb, the people are messaging you at all times of the day, saying, hey, I'm having trouble getting in. Hey, this broke. Hey, this isn't working. Even for medium-term rentals, even for long-term rentals. Typically, short-term rentals are the least passive, and then long-term rentals are the most passive. But as you can imagine, the return on short-term rentals is typically higher than the return that you'll find on a long-term rental. So as I said, everything is a trade-off. I'm so sorry to give you all of this bad news, but the best news is that it is worth it. Even if you're doing a short-term rental, there are ways, especially now, the automation has been amazing. You can reach out to me and I'd be happy to tell you what I use on how to make this investment as passive as possible. I couldn't possibly go into that in this video because it would be hours of things that I've read, learned, experimented with, tried the hard way. But there are ways to make essentially real estate not a huge headache, but I'm preparing you now. If you're looking to invest in something where you can just have your hands off and not put any work into it, real estate may not be the best option for you because generally speaking, it is not a very passive investment. And now, as promised, I'm going to share with you all the amount of money that I am currently making in my house hack, in my investment property. And the answer is nothing. I am currently not making any money in my investment property. Yes, you heard it here. Rewind it. And the answer is nothing. I am currently not making any money in my investment property. And you're like, oh my gosh, I've been listening to this girl for 20 minutes about how to make money through real estate. And she just admitted that she ain't making no money through real estate. That is true. So that is partly true. So as I said, because I'm getting started in real estate in my 20s, I knew that I had a long-term real estate investment strategy. So I knew my primary concern wasn't going to be cash flow. It was going to be appreciation because I have a long-term perspective and also because I have a full-time job. I don't need to, thank you, Lord, I don't need to depend on this real estate property in order to pay my bills, in order to get through my day-to-day, because that's what my full-time job gives me and offers me. But I would rather put the money that I'm making from my full-time job into real estate versus putting it into a super volatile stock or into a savings account that's literally being eaten away by inflation every single day. So because appreciation was my primary focus, I knew there was a big chance that I wasn't going to be making a lot of money in my first year or even my second year. So right now I can tell you the home that I'm renting out is currently being rented by tenants and I am breaking even and I am so happy. I'm going to be honest with you. Some months I make a little bit more. Some months I make a little bit less than my mortgage payments, but generally speaking, I'm breaking even, maybe a little bit less, but it's nothing that's thankfully detrimental to my life. But I can tell you that the appreciation in my home has gone up in 1 to 2 years. So although I'm breaking even, the tenants that I have in my home are paying for that appreciation, are paying for the equity that I have in my home. So although it's really not benefiting me right now in the short term, if I ever need to sell that property or once it's paid off because I decided to make that investment early on, because I decided to take a bet on appreciation versus depending solely on cash flow. I could come on here and be like, I'm making a ton of money, I'm doing this, and that is not true because that was not my investment strategy. I knew that I wanted to purchase something that was going to going to have long-term benefits versus short-term benefits only. So I say all of that to say, if you purchase a piece of real estate, even if it's a house hack, go in with the mentality that you may not be making money in your first year. I know that hurts. I know that sucks to hear, but it's good to go in with that mindset, with that expectation, so that if it happens, you don't feel like you screwed up. You don't feel like you made the wrong decision. You can still feel confident and say, I know that this was probably going to happen. I went in with that expectation, but thankfully I'm financially secure that I don't need this cash flow. I don't need this money. If appreciation is your goal, which if you're a young adult, I recommend that is your long-term goal, but it depends from person to person. So harsh reality is you may not be making money in your first year, in your second year, but guess what? In your third year, you might, in your fourth year, you might, in your fifth year, you might be making more and more and more. And eventually you'll see that in your sixth year, you're not just building appreciation. Your home's not just going up in value every year, but you're also making money from the cash flow of your investment property. That is the power of real estate. And that's why we recommend not to purchase it with a 1 to 2-3 year goal, but to purchase it with a 4, 5, 6 year goal, a long-term perspective. I do have some tips about what to look for in an investment property. And I guess I'll share them really quickly just because I know this video is getting a little long. But if you are looking to do a house hack, the biggest features that I wish, I kind of learned along the way, and I made some mistakes in my purchasing my home where I'm like, I wish I paid attention to this. I wish I included this. I wish I didn't include that. Really fast, the top features that I recommend that you look for is windows, natural light. Most people, not everyone, but most people like to have a lot of natural light in their home. They want to feel open and bright when they come home. And a lot of times if you buy a home that doesn't have a lot of natural light, where the ceilings are really low, it can make them feel a little bit uncomfortable, a little bit claustrophobic, and they just can't put their finger on it. But something about this home doesn't make them feel serene and relaxed. So I highly recommend finding a home that offers a lot of windows and a lot of natural light. Also, high ceilings. High ceilings have a big impact on how comfortable and open people feel in their home. Another thing is a home that is in a good condition. Please, I beg of you, get an inspection report on your property. Some builders our company offers an inspection report that the builder pays for, but if you're purchasing a new construction home or a home that is a resale or a property that's is a used property, I highly, highly recommend getting an inspection report and paying attention to that inspection report to make sure. Please try to buy a home that's in a good condition, that's not going to give you more of a headache than a benefit. Also, I recommend to look for an open floor plan, something that's welcoming, something that's kind of entertainment friendly. Some people do like closed floor plans, but in my experience talking with many different buyers and sellers, generally people do prefer an open floor plan currently over a closed floor plan. Also, I did this in my home and I recommend you consider doing this. I do not have carpet in my home. It was an additional upgrade and an expense for me to pay for, not just the tile, but also the installation. But it just helps keep things more clean. Carpet can really absorb smells that are really difficult to get out. So even though it's a little bit more money, I recommend getting tile throughout or even vinyl floorings, but having minimal carpet in your investment property. Also, the last quick tip I have is to find timeless selections. Don't do anything trendy. Unless you're doing a short-term rental and that's your niche, it may be a good idea to get a home that has neutral selections, nothing too crazy that won't date your home so that in 5 years people are like, this home is so like 2024. Something that's going to be timeless, that in 10-20 years it still looks modern and clean. So timeless selections is my last quick tip. So in conclusion, I am a real estate agent. I am a realtor in the city of El Paso, in the state of Texas. And all of this is just what I personally did and my best piece of advice for purchasing your first real estate investment and how I did it. But please keep in mind that the best strategy for you is going to be the best strategy for you. Maybe there's something that I said where you're like, yes, that is what I'm looking for. I'm looking for appreciation. Or maybe you're like, that doesn't really pertain to me right now. I'm looking for something with cash flow in this area and in this area. So everything I say, don't just take it at face value. Really critically think, look at your financial situation, think about your long-term goals, and ultimately do what is best for you and your strategy. Also, I recommend listening to the Bigger Pockets podcast. They also have a Bigger Pockets Rookie podcast where they talk about a lot of the things that you should know about purchasing your first real estate property. And the nice thing about house hacking is it kind of gets your feet wet to see, is real estate for me? How do I feel? Am I comfortable with this? What would I change? What did I think I did right? But it's also your primary residence, so it's not as risky as just buying a complete investment property. So maybe you try house hacking and you figure out this real estate thing is not for me. No worries. You have a property that's going to help build generational wealth for your family. We can keep it pushing and do the investment strategy that you think is best. Or maybe you house hack and you're like, okay, I'm seeing the benefit in this. I'm getting more comfortable. I learned this mistake. I'm going to improve on this area. Now I'm going to be looking to buy a complete investment property, to do a long-term rental, to do an Airbnb, to do a medium-term rental. So at least try learning more about real estate investment, real estate properties, even if you have a full-time job like I do, even if you have a full-time job that has nothing to do with real estate. A lot of the investors I speak to, I talk to, and I know have a whole W-2 job, being an engineer, being a software developer, being an accountant, and still invest in real estate because they are looking to build generational wealth. So that's it for this video. I know that was a ton of information, but I really hope that this helped open up your point of view about some of the benefits of real estate and some of the best ways to get started. So if you have any questions in specific, don't be afraid to DM me, reach out to me, and let me know what you thought about this episode. Was it boring? Was it too much information? Was it confusing? I would love to hear what you all thought. So thank you all so much for watching. I hope you have an amazing rest of your week, and we'll talk to you soon. have to put my full $100 into the stock to receive the benefits. But a piece of real estate, if I want to buy a house for $100,000, I only need to put down $20,000 to receive the benefits of this investment. One of the biggest benefits of real estate is the appreciation.